One of the beautiful things about the public education system is its ability to accommodate every child, every capacity. We know, of course, of the general population and you viewers, audience members, you've gone through school. But did you know that there are provisions for students who need a little extra help? And we refer to them as our special education students. But also, we have special schools designed for students who might need a little extra support when it comes to emotional intelligence and how to handle the dynamics of life. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we can all have a little bit of support to handle the dynamics of life? Listen, my name is Anne Marie, and this is About This Life podcast. And the podcast is it's really about taking into account what are some of the choices we can make, what are some of the decisions we can shift, we can change so that we can grow and evolve as we become our better selves. It's not about competing against one another, it's about competing within ourselves to become and to evolve. I am so pleased. I am so pleased to have this queen, this lady, this absolute beautiful spirit in person on my show today. So, Dr. Elizabeth Sherrell-Davis, hello, hello, hello. Welcome.
Appreciate that. I love that opening. Thank you. I am happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's interesting because when I call my friends, like we will say to each other, "Hi, lady," or we build each other up and we say, "Hi, queen. Do you know that you are a queen? Do you know you are fabulous? Do you know that you are all that in a bag of chips?" And so we gas each other up in a positive way because we want to definitely affirm who we are as individuals. And I want to talk about who you are as an individual because my goodness, can I call you Dr. Elizabeth? Is that okay?
My friends call me Dr. E.
Dr. E, thank you so much. So, Dr. E, you are a retired instructional design manager. You used to work for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We are going to get into that. Curriculum design. I know a little something, something about curriculum design. You did it for 85,000 employees. Then you're a professor, Folsom Lake College, sought after speaker, podcast guest. Well, thank you for coming here. But you're the founder of the Signature of Excellence Coaching and Consulting Firm. And so I'm sure there's more to it as well, as in terms of who you are. And the reason I'm excited to have this conversation with you is we want to impact. We want to make an impact on people. We want people to find that they can have a second chance. I'm curious, what drew you to teaching at a correctional facility?
I've always had a passion to teach as a little girl with the chalkboard and having my friends as my students. When I was a little girl, it was just always something in me that I always wanted to capture the audience, but I always wanted to help them. So through high school, I was teacher's aide, but I didn't go to college after high school. I went to work. But with my training after, at some point in life, I decided to go back to college to get my bachelor's and master's degree in my 40s. I got a teaching job at a business college. And so I taught first-time students or students that was re-entering into the education system, preferably at higher ed. And there was this police officer that taught the criminal justice program that would stand outside of my class and listen to me. I didn't know this. He approached me one day and said, "How would you like to teach in the prison system?" That never occurred to me. I didn't know anything
Mhm.
about that. And he said, "I think you would do well with the women's prison." At the time, I was like, "Okay, fine, let me know." I didn't think it was going to happen, and I received the phone call. We would like for you to teach business at Mill Creek State Prison, and your audience will be males. Knew nothing
Okay.
about, I knew nothing about, only thing I knew about prison was what I saw on television. The,
Okay.
the yard, that's all I could tell at that time. So I had my visit to the prison. I had to go through 6 doors, not knowing anything about anything. I got about 3 hours of training, and I showed up the next day to teach my class. And as I walked through that final door, and I entered into the yard, I was by myself, and I froze for a moment. But I saw this correctional officer, and I said, "Hey, it's my first day. Can you do me a favor? Can you walk with me to my class?" And the rest is history. That first day was a little awkward. I didn't know. I actually had a student that was winking at me the whole time. But by the grace of God, he placed me there 8 years ago, and I've been there every semester for the last 8 years.
That's beautiful. And
Yeah,
I
go
want to I want to go, Dr. E, into the mindset a little bit because the first thing that people, society think about is perceived danger and being out there.
yes.
And one of the things, there are different types, there's a different type of student. For example, in your story, you mentioned that you were teaching students who were coming back to college, or perhaps they were coming back to finish their high school education. That's a different type of student than the one who goes straight through because their desire is different. Talk a little bit about their desire, that student who comes back to school.
Because I was that student.
Hmm.
I went back to school in my 40s. So
Yes,
that same student in my classroom. So I had a drive. I was driven because I saw myself and all 60 of those students.
yes. And
They
they
wanted
have,
to be in a different space. They wanted more. They wanted to be respected because once you get the college degree, it places you in a different arena. So I was able to share my experience, and they wanted that experience. They wanted that exposure to knowledge.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing that because I wanted to point out there are, when you go straight through college, sometimes people, it's almost like they take it for granted. But when you've left and you come back and you realize, as you just said beautifully, you want to be in a different space and have different levels of access. So if we know that exists for the student, returning student, what is the mindset of somebody who's incarcerated? So educate us. Somebody who's incarcerated, what is their appetite or their desire to finish their education or earn a degree? What motivates them?
What motivates them is that when they finish their course every semester, they get 6 months off their sentence. But not only that, they're very smart, very smart. They read more than the average person because that's all they have to do all day is read. They educate me on books that I
Mhm.
haven't read, that I didn't even know existed. But the desire to do better for themselves because they're preparing. They're saying, "Okay, I plan to leave. I plan to have that meeting with the parole board in 3 years. In 3 years, this is where I'm going to be. Dr. E, this is where I want to be. Can you help me?" I want a career in human resources. I said, "Okay, so let me do my research and then I'll present it to the class next week. I want to own my own trucking company. Let me do some research and I'll present that next week. So they're open to new thoughts, new ideas. They understand they committed a crime. They understand that they're there because they committed the crime, but they also know that there are people in the world that's going to give them a second opportunity so that they can raise their children, take care of the family, and do what they're supposed to do as what society says men are supposed to do, but so that they can feel good about themselves.
Yes, that whole personal thing. Um, you mentioned walking in the yard, and you mentioned asking the correctional officer to walk with you. What biases or assumptions did you walk in with? And then you said you've been there for 8 years and you're still there. Your biases and your assumptions have changed. You have evolved. You are the living testimony. What biases did you walk in with? And when you go to work now, how has your life been changed by this experience?
You know what's interesting is that I went in with no biases because I didn't know. So
Mm,
I didn't know. I only know what I saw on television. I knew people that had went to prison, but that wasn't necessarily the group that I interacted with. That's not saying because they went to prison, just that we didn't interact often enough for me to know what that system was, what the system is about. So I had no biases. I just knew I had a fear for a moment when I walked out of that sixth door and I'm in the yard and um, all of the incarcerated men were in the yard. And because it was like I didn't have my bodyguards, I didn't have my folks with me that day. I was by myself. And I
hmm.
just needed reassurance to calm me down before I get to my classroom. And so the correctional officer talked to me as we were walking, but I had no biases because I didn't know.
Okay.
I,
Well, not to mention it's your first day. So it's your first day too. So
but
being
it's,
excited.
the other part to that is I knew in the correctional system, it's men of color. That's part of
Mm,
my family. The men of color.
mm,
Well, I grew up in San Francisco, California. So I grew up with Hispanics, you know, African American men, Native
hmm.
American. I mean, we're like this whole melting pot of people. So I knew what was there in terms of race, but that's my family.
Yeah, that is your family. Dr. E, is there, I'm sure there are many. I'm sure there are many. Is there a student who stood out to you or whose story just resonated deep in your heart?
Well, I'll share this. I don't really ask about their story. I try not to because that's emotional. Because sometimes we take that on. We take on whatever that person's been through, and it's
Hmm.
too many of them. So I try not to go into their
So
personal
that's a
lives.
boundary that you've
I
established. Yes.
Absolutely. But what I will share with you is that this past Thursday, I get students, I get them like a year, they're with me a year, and then I don't see them. So, no, that wasn't Thursday, that was Tuesday. So, as I entered into the yard, I hear someone saying, yelling, "Hey, Dr. E." I don't know who you
Hmm.
are because I can't hear you, so I'm waving. But the best part about Tuesday was I had three students approach me and said, "Dr. E, I just finished my bachelor's degree and I'm headed to E-Yard for my master's degree."
Mm. So
I
they
mean,
already have another goal.
I'm not really supposed to be having conversation like that, but darn it, I had to have conversation with them. I'm just so proud that I had the opportunity to be a part of that, to coach them of the importance of getting their education. So when they have that meeting with the parole board can see that they have completed their degree and they're
Do,
moving on to their master's.
do you think God placed you in that position at this time for a reason, for this purpose?
Absolutely. He
Speak to the
placed me.
spirit.
Yes, God placed me there because I'll tell you, they hire people all day long to teach in the prison and they go home within an hour. And the funniest thing, my first day, they had a bet that I wasn't going to last. They had a bet. But I didn't think that I wasn't going to last. Shoot, it's a
Mhm.
paid teaching opportunity with the California Community College District. I get a pension too. So, I'm looking at it in a positive sense, but I do believe God directed me there, and that's why I've been there for so long.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've mentioned a few times about a second chance, another chance. What would you say? There's so many people in society say, "Oh, nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves a second chance." Why give someone a second chance? Why? What's your why?
Because we don't know their history.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have parents that are incarcerated and the child ends up in foster care, whose fault is that? It's not the
Mm-hmm.
child's fault. So, and a lot of things go on in the foster care system that leads these young men and women to criminal activities. So, until we know the story, we shouldn't have any biases. What we should be doing is helping these young men and women that are incarcerated to live a better life. But more importantly, we need to have a clear eye on the foster care system to know what those children are going through. I mean, it's kind of like you start from the beginning. Where is the
Yeah.
problem? It's not when they get to prison. The problem is when they're children. To understand what children are going through and making sure that those children are receiving the services that they need so they can grow up to be healthy adults.
Absolutely. And something about the children, and you and I were talking about coaching, life coaching, and consulting before we started recording, because you are the founder of Signature of Excellence coaching and consulting firm. And I'm the founder of Becoming Enough, Becoming You. One of the things that we explore is this work with uh, the inner child, that as a grown person, there are some issues that happened when you were a child. And until you resolve those things, there is room for dysfunction or there's room for blockage in order to live your fulfilled life. In your business, in your coaching, how do you help people move to their higher self?
It starts with the relationship, the trust. Can you trust me? Can you trust me with your feelings? Can you trust me with where you're at in your life? Can you trust me to help you to open, to move to the next level? Are you willing to do the work to get to the next level? It's all about that person. I'm just here as um, I'm here as the coach to help you
Mhm.
through, but the person has to do the work,
Mhm.
willing to do the work. And it's work.
And what's the work? Like, give us an idea of the type of services that you offer or that you ask your clients to do. What's the work?
So my clients are normally women that are 40 years and older that's trying to climb the corporate, private sector, or government ladder. They're raising their children. Some are raising husbands. Some are have I
I
always have
have
to
to
throw in a
laugh
little
at that
humor. I always have to throw in a little bit of humor. But they, have
one.
in-laws, their parents living with them. They have animals. And so they're doing everything. You can't do everything. You have to, I call it outsource. You have to learn how to outsource. So with my clients, I find out they share with me the challenges that they're facing, and we take one challenge at a time. Normally, it's because they are not outsourcing those responsibilities in the household, or they're not delegating tasks in the workplace so that they can be free to receive personal development. So once I understand what the problem is, now we have to set some parameters. We have to set goals. And part of my program is vision boards where we use shadow boxes to
Mhm.
develop your vision of how you want your personal life at home or your work life or both. How do you want that to look? It's one thing to have it here, but you need to put it in a vision so you can see really where you are now and where you want to be. So, time management services is also part of my program. I also have a program at an elementary school. We're teaching children vision boards at the age of 8. Now, that's my strength is with the
Yes.
8-year-olds, building their vision boards in a shadow box of how they want their life to look, or if they want to go to college, what that looks like. Um, and it's asking those open-ended questions when I'm having conversations with my client. I need to understand, how are you feeling right now?
Mhm.
Always making sure that we're on the same page in terms of what services or what can I do to help you today? Because each time we meet twice a month, we're working on something different.
Something different. And it sounds very much like, you know, in terms of these are women who are establishing their careers, they know who they are. They know they have their self-esteem and intact. They might just be feeling a little overwhelmed or living in burnout. And they're just like, please stop. Right?
Right, but sometimes what we do is we as women sometimes we think we can do everything. Keep the house
Mm,
clean, keep the husband happy, keeping the grandparents happy. If you've got in-laws living with you or your parents are living in a household because they're, at a certain age and they need assistance. You've got children that only thing they want to do is be on the internet or stream. But it's like, sometimes in the household, the only person that's doing anything is the female. So, but understanding how to delegate. I mean, I'll say this. I just remember my mother. I just remember her saying that, like, I don't know, I had to be like 5 years old. Teach me how to separate the clothes from the colors from the white so that we can wash the clothes. Taking them out of the wash and put them in the dryer at 5. By the time I was 8, I was running my mother's household. My mother, she just worked and came home. She didn't do anything else because that was my responsibility. That's not saying that's the world that we want to raise our daughters, but everyone in the household should have a responsibility.
or our sons, as a point of fact as well, because they're the ones who are
Absolutely.
marrying and dating our daughters. It comes to the idea that we think we can do everything because we've had to do everything. And let me tell you, when you talk about women, one of the most undervalued, we are undervalued and unappreciated for, and yet we do so much. Where would the world be without us? And what I'm hearing from you and what I'm loving about this particular season in our lives and in the world, women are finally saying no mas, no more.
Absolutely. You're correct. I'll tell you, yesterday in class, like Monday and Tuesdays when I teach, I showed the movie Hidden Figures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and so for me, because I've watched it several times, every time I watch it, I learn something different. But the women in the 50s, I think that movie
Yes.
was in the 50s, they were working at NASA,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with all of the discrimination, just tons of discrimination and biases.
Yes.
But they held it down. But then they had to go home and take care of hubby and the kids.
And they had to play multiple roles because when you say holding it down, they had to please everybody in the workplace,
Yes,
despite the way that they were discriminated against. And then they had to go home. And, at that time, in that time period, women, we weren't equipped or empowered to be our independent selves as we should be. So,
absolutely.
um, what are some of the common pitfalls of what are common pitfalls when it comes to turning your life around? Why do people struggle so much?
I think sometimes people struggle because they don't know that there's resources available. They don't know. Sometimes, especially in our community, sometimes those resources don't reach our communities.
Hmm.
So we don't know. We don't know that we could see a therapist at no cost.
Yes.
We
Yes.
don't know that you could see a coach at no cost unless someone tells us. Not all the resources reaches our community or people of color's community. So sometimes that's why we struggle. And sometimes, the church is there for us, but the church has limited resources. So
Okay.
we have to place ourselves with others that not necessarily look like us to gain knowledge. It's like when you go to the table, the
Hmm.
table is diversified, and all of those diverse communities bring something to the table of what we can learn from.
Absolutely. And speaking of diversify, Dr. E, I've heard you say that you're a professor working with men, the male population. Your business is helping women, the female population, and then you work with the little kids, with the 8-year-olds.
Yeah, but I think it's just who I am as a person, diverse. I mean, I love working with women, I love working with kids. I just like working with people because I've been blessed in my life to have
Mhm.
those resources. And when I get those resources, I share those resources because everyone should have the opportunity to live a better life. And for those of us that have the resources, it's our
Mhm.
responsibility to share those resources.
Absolutely. And so thank you very much. Now, your just getting back to your signature consultant business for a moment, signature of excellence, you have a tagline. I'm going to share your tagline with you.
Okay.
Envision, empower, elevate. You help women transform their lives through clarity, connection, and courage. Of all of the words in the English language, why these? So maybe we can start with the E's first. And I like that because you are Dr. E. So I caught that. So
Well, I
envision,
tell you,
empower, elevate.
um, I'll tell you, stepping outside of your comfort zone and having conversations with people has helped me to build the business. I worked in business. I worked for 47 years. 40 of those years I led, but I always surrounded myself with people that could help me grow. So when I started the business, I just reached out to people that I know that's in sales and marketing,
Hmm.
because we all have that network. And so I would just call people and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing A, B, C, and D. And they said,
Yes.
okay, well, let me think about that. And then they'll get back to me. Have you thought about this? No,
Hmm.
I haven't. And that's how Signature Excellence coaching and consulting firm evolved. Elevate. I want to elevate women and men and children to be the best that they can be. Empower. I was empowered. So and I want everyone else to be empowered. I thank God every day for the blessings that He's
Hmm.
given me from a child to where I am today.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
just, I think I came here this way. With all the tragedies and tribulations that we go through in life has brought me to where I am today. I'm blessed. I want everyone else to be blessed. If I can bless you, then um, that's
Yes, and
that's part of who
amen.
I am.
Yes, and amen. So, in closing, then we have the C's: clarity, connection, and courage. Why those pillars of your consulting business? Why does it matter to have clarity, connection, and courage?
Well, the clarity, when you have clarity on your direction, that's the drive for you to do better. Because I've clarified, I understand what's going on. I've had that conversation with God, and God has given me the clarity and the courage for me to move on. The courage part, what
Hold
came to
on a
mind,
second, because I need to jump in. I'm that host.
well, we
Okay.
don't,
I can't help myself. I'm just that host because I'm your case example. And let me tell you how I evolved. That point about clarity, because the experience of not having it is that's the person who walks around, and maybe you're going to work every day, and in this year maybe you lost your job. Let's be real. Okay. Can we talk? You are getting up every morning and you just going through the motions because you want to do something. You're not sure what you want to do or how you're going to do it, and you're overthinking, but yet you don't have clarity about your goals. And so there's a murkiness there. So that word is very important because it sucks your energy dry if you're not clear about who you are.
but not only that, but everybody else around you too.
Hmm.
So
So it sucks.
clarity is essential. Is when I'm having a coaching session with a client for the first time, we have to get clarity.
Hmm.
Why are you here and what do you want? How can I
Hmm.
help you? Clarity. Yes.
Absolutely. And then you started to speak on the courage part, and the connection is going to be relationship, right? So what were you going to say about courage?
Courage, it reminded me, you're gonna laugh, the Wizard of Oz. He was
Okay.
looking, he was looking for courage.
Yes.
And he found courage eventually. Some of us are looking for courage. And that's where the coaching comes in. We need the courage. We need the courage to have that conversation with our managers. We need that courage to have that conversation with our significant other. Whatever that conversation may be, sometimes we need that courage. Courage is important. It comes actually to me, courage comes in right under clarity. And then
Absolutely.
the connection, hopefully the connection is with your spirituality first and foremost, and then your connection with yourself, connection with your family, connection with your friends. That's important. The connection with the people. I have to have good
Would
connections with folks.
would you agree? I have found this to be true in the work that I do, that sometimes you can have courage in one area of your life and lack the courage in other spaces of your life. Same person. You can walk into the workplace and you can manage or supervise employees, but put you in a different relationship, in a different space, and you don't have courage. That has always been a fascinating thing for me to understand that person, like how come they're so strong in this area, but they're struggling in another.
I think we're all that way. Some of us,
Mm.
like you said, are great at managing people and managing the organization, but our finances is not in a good space. Think
So we're
about,
built that way. Maybe we're built that way. Oh
and
my
then
goodness.
and sometimes we have to say to ourselves, okay, I'm great at this, but I'm not good over here. Let me find some resources so that I can get help. I need help.
Hmm.
Sometimes we don't acknowledge that we need the help, or we don't want to acknowledge that we need to to fix this.
Yes. So it's important that we know that help is available, that we find help, and that we are open to the idea of becoming our better selves.
Absolutely.
That's the gist. That's the gist. I would like to thank you so very, very much for bringing your fascinating story to About This Life. I appreciate you and this conversation. And I sincerely hope to our listeners, especially to people who find themselves incarcerated and they think, my life is over. Is there all there is? And the absolute question, as long as you're breathing, you good. You still have life to give. You still have a lot to offer. So we thank you for the work that you do, the heart-based work you do. Appreciate you. So how do
Thank
people
you.
find you? How do people find you and connect with you? Perhaps you can go ahead and share your website.
Sure, they can reach me. My website is www.signatureofexcellencelifecoach.com. That's my
Okay.
website. And if you wanted to call me directly or send a text, you can reach me at 916-204-7278.
Okay, well, thank you for that information. And certainly, once again, appreciate all that you have to share in terms of the wisdom and making connection with others and seeing our humanity in one another, seeing our humanity. Okay, so this is Anne Marie, host of About This Life, where we are changing our lives one day at a time. Take care, everybody. Come back next time. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.